Welcome back, everyone. I want you to imagine a predator suddenly choking on the very same breath they just stole from you. We often ask why the universe stays so incredibly silent while an empath bleeds. But what happens when that silence finally shatters, resulting in the sudden, shocking death of the narcissist who broke you? You need to hear this, because the truth will set you free entirely. Society constantly tells us that abusers always win, that they effortlessly walk away completely unscathed after destroying a pure heart. You sit in the heavy, agonizing dark, wondering how they sleep so peacefully at night while your entire world is violently burning to ash. But you are looking at a carefully manufactured illusion. The scales of cosmic justice are never actually blind. To truly understand this terrifying phenomenon, you have to look past the fake smiles they post online. The narcissist spent years playing a dark, twisted game with your deepest vulnerabilities. They extracted your brilliant, radiant light, believing they could just absorb your energy without any consequences. But they made one massive, fatal mistake. They attacked a protected soul. Have you ever wondered what actually happens when a parasite completely consumes a source of light that is entirely too powerful for its dark biology? You imagine them thriving, finally capable of the happiness they aggressively denied you. But the reality is infinitely more terrifying. They did not absorb your beautiful light to shine. They swallowed a fire that burned them alive. This isn't a fairy tale designed to just temporarily soothe your broken spirit. This is the brutal, undeniable physics of spiritual warfare. When an abuser maliciously targets a genuine empath, they are essentially plugging a heavily damaged, rotting appliance directly into a massive, high-voltage power grid. The ultimate result isn't a miraculous healing. It is a violent system failure. I know you remember the deep, suffocating exhaustion you felt when you were trapped in their web. Your central nervous system was hijacked, desperately trying to keep you safe from their chaos. But here is the secret knowledge they pray you never discover. While you were deeply suffering, they were slowly absorbing a highly toxic, spiritual debt that they could never actually repay. The exact moment you finally walked away and stopped shielding them from their own dark karma, the ultimate countdown began. Without your pure, empathetic energy serving as an artificial life support system, their heavily corrupted internal machine began to rapidly malfunction. They suddenly found themselves entirely exposed to the raw, crushing weight of their own malicious actions. Today, we are completely ripping away the heavy curtain on this shocking, undeniable reality. We are going to meticulously break down the exact, agonizing psychological cascade that violently pushes a narcissist into total madness and sudden biological collapse after destroying an empath. Prepare yourself to look directly at the raw truth of what happens when the universe fights back. Are you truly ready to permanently shatter the terrifying illusion of their untouchable power? It is time to step entirely out of the suffocating fog of your historical grief and actively witness the bleak, inescapable reality of their absolute cosmic punishment. Let us begin this intense, slow-burn dive into the psychological hellscape that violently claimed the monster who hurt you. The abusive dynamic is violently flipping right before your very eyes. The untouchable, arrogant predator is about to become a highly terrified, deeply desperate prisoner, completely trapped in a biological cage constructed by their own malice. You are no longer their victim. You are the divinely protected witness to their inescapable ruin. Welcome to the terrifying reality of justice. Let us sit with that reality for a second. To completely comprehend this devastating emotional and physical collapse, we must expose the deeply flawed mechanics of their sick mind. The narcissist absolutely lacks a solid, authentic internal core. They function purely as an empty, parasitic shell mimicking human life. To survive the day, they must consume the vital energy of good people. You were their absolute ultimate target. They meticulously chose your pure soul because their dark, internal void violently demands constant, chaotic stimulation. They arrogantly assumed they could comfortably torture your innocence indefinitely without ever facing the devastating cosmic consequences. Their heavily inflated ego convinced their broken brain that they owned your radiant energy. But this predatory reliance on your magnificent external energy was their fatal vulnerability. By entirely attaching themselves to your profound spiritual output, they unknowingly ingested something they simply could not digest. An empath's love is incredibly pure, but when it is maliciously stolen and weaponized, it violently mutates into an acidic poison inside the narcissist's empty soul. The abuser's mind is a chaotic, entirely inescapable battleground of severe, heavily suppressed terror. Their vicious cruelty toward you was merely a pathetic, desperate attempt to escape the horrifying void living entirely inside their own brain. But when you finally left, they were forced to sit alone in the terrifying, deafening silence. And the dark voices in their head grew very loud. They attempt to frantically plug the massive, bleeding hole in their ego with incredibly cheap, highly superficial new supply. They surround themselves with weak victims who offer empty validation. But this shallow praise tastes like pure, bitter ash in their mouth. It entirely fails to satisfy the ravenous, deep-water hunger they developed for your highly complex, profound human soul. The insanity slowly begins with deep, unshakable paranoia. They know exactly what they did to you in the dark. Without your beautiful forgiveness masking their horrific crimes, they begin to see the terrifying monsters staring back at them in the mirror. They start to constantly look over their shoulder, deeply terrified that the universe is finally coming to collect its massive debt. They absolutely despise the undeniable fact that they are fundamentally dependent on a person they maliciously destroyed. This deeply buried, pathological resentment entirely fuels their escalating, chaotic state of severe mental fragmentation. They violently rejected you to prove their supreme power, only to painfully discover they are absolutely nothing without your bright, guiding light. Underneath the arrogant, untouchable mask, their nervous system begins to heavily malfunction. The intense stress of maintaining a fake reality without your pure energy to power it acts like a massive virus in their brain. They start losing their grip on logic. Their lies become incredibly sloppy. They act deeply erratic, lashing out violently at the very people trying to enable them. Notice their intense, highly defensive aggression when they are occasionally forced to briefly confront the massive void you left behind. They project their severe, internal frustration onto totally innocent bystanders. This extreme, chaotic defensiveness is absolute proof of their deep, inescapable spiritual terror. They realize their fragile, fake universe is violently tearing apart. Their heavily corrupted internal machine is entirely breaking down under the massive, exhausting amount of psychological energy required to survive your profound absence. They are completely trapped in a vicious, terrifying cycle of unexplainable mental deterioration, desperately chasing a fleeting illusion of dominance while their actual sanity actively burns to the dark ground around them. The dramatic, completely inescapable turning point arrives the exact moment their mental fragmentation severely infects their physical body. The mind and the body are deeply, intimately connected. For years, they actively suppressed their toxic shame, forcing it down into their cellular tissue. And suddenly, the body simply refuses to carry the heavy, dark weight of that trauma anymore. As the heavy, silent weeks violently mutate into completely empty, agonizing months, the terrifying, permanent reality of your absolute departure forcefully sets in. They stare across the room and feel an intense, suffocating wave of profound panic. They suddenly realize that their mind is completely turning against them. The dark thoughts they used to control are now controlling them. This undeniable, visible shift in their absolute psychological frequency is the most devastating, lethal blow a narcissist can ever receive. Their total loss of mental control acts as a devastating mirror, violently reflecting their pathetic insignificance right back at them. The sudden realization that they are actually going completely crazy triggers a massive, silent, biological panic. The realization that absolutely no one will miraculously relieve them of this heavy, toxic burden pushes their internal terror into rapid, severe overdrive. The chaos that ensues within their deeply corrupted, fragmented mind is intensely visceral and entirely consuming. The constant, crushing stress of trying to survive this dark, undeniable mental collapse makes them physically sick. They suddenly realize, with absolute, chilling horror, that they maliciously destroyed the absolute best, most pure thing they ever had. The heavy, agonizing memories of your profound kindness and the severe cruelty they repaid it with begin to actively bleed directly into their highly guarded reality. They are severely haunted by the innocent, pure tears they violently forced you to cry. Their once calculated, terrifying control becomes completely impotent and pathetically messy. They fiercely launch desperate, frantic attempts to regain stability, reaching out to old sources of supply in a sweaty, terrifying panic. But these vicious, transparent tactics completely fail to deliver the vital life force they so desperately crave. People begin to clearly see their madness. The profound shift in the cosmic power dynamic becomes entirely absolute. You, the fiercely resilient empath, begin to safely see the undeniable, pathetic truth hiding perfectly behind their aggressive mask. You realize the terrifying monster you once deeply feared is actually just a miserable, broken, severely starving shell of a person completely drowning in heavy regret and madness. This profound realization instantly strips away the final, lingering remnants of their phantom power over you. They can absolutely no longer manipulate your deep, beautiful, spiritual empathy with fake cries for help or orchestrated medical emergencies. You are completely immune to their desperate projections. The heavy, dark spell is permanently broken, replaced by pure freezing clarity. As your formidable, brilliant boundaries remain perfectly intact, the narcissist experiences a terrifying sensation akin to sudden, violent biological suffocation. They deeply realize the profound well of your genuine empathy is permanently, entirely dry. They are psychologically and physically starving to death right in front of the world. The intense isolation aggressively kills them. The magnificent, highly empowering twist of this dark narrative is finally fully revealed. The exact arrogance they aggressively weaponize to destroy your pure spirit has become the exact, undeniable catalyst for their final, absolute biological undoing. They blindly pushed you to the absolute limit, entirely unaware that the heavy recoil of that abuse would literally snap their own mind. The psychological and physical collapse now aggressively enters its final, darkest, and completely irreversible phase. The narcissist's daily life rapidly becomes a pathetic, deeply agonizing series of profound, unexplainable bodily and mental failures. Without your pure, radiant energy to actively dilute their severely dark, rotting core, their intensely toxic internal reality is exposed. They experience a total, horrifying, and complete fragmentation of their fabricated, godlike false reality. The carefully constructed public mask violently shatters into millions of unrecoverable, deeply jagged pieces. The fake, arrogant confidence is violently replaced by a crippling, deeply paranoid fear of their own failing biology. They literally feel their physical heart giving out. This is the sudden, brutal, and completely absolute death of the narcissistic ego directly preceding their physical demise. It is a profound, agonizing psychological obliteration. They become entirely unrecognizable from the arrogant, untouchable predator who once brutally tormented you without any mercy. They are severely hollowed out, incredibly empty vessels trapped in pure, deep terror. They desperately try to retreat further into absolute, suffocating isolation, attempting to hide their pathetic, undeniable physical deterioration from the unforgiving eyes of the world. The terrifying, heavy silence of their lonely reality rapidly becomes a personalized, inescapable, dark psychological torture chamber entirely constructed by the severe karma of breaking a true empath's soul. Notice their complete, devastating, and entirely permanent lack of genuine spiritual peace at the very end. A true, resilient empath, even in the deepest, most agonizing pain, can eventually find profound moments of quiet grace. The collapsed, dying narcissist will absolutely never know this basic comfort. Their internal mental landscape is a perpetually burning, fatal, dark wasteland. The severe consequences they inevitably face are brutally, intensely unforgiving. The shallow flying monkeys and weak enablers who once heavily supported their dark, abusive reign are terrified by this sudden madness and entirely abandon them. The abuser is forcefully made to face the harsh, undeniable truth. They are dying completely alone, surrounded only by the dark ghosts of their past. The physical and mental toll of this massive spiritual collapse is deeply horrifying to witness. The constant, agonizing stress of maintaining their fragile delusions while facing ultimate divine judgment entirely ravages their mind and body. They look completely hollow, deeply exhausted, and incredibly paranoid. The rapidly decaying outer shell perfectly reflects their dark, rotting soul. There is a profound, undeniable, and cinematic justice in this horrific, sudden collapse. It is a terrifying, absolute testament to the universal, unbreakable law of spiritual gravity. You absolutely cannot constantly exploit the brilliant, fiercely loyal light of pure souls without eventually burning your own biological world entirely alive. The massive cosmic debt has finally come due. They are entirely brutally forced to witness you safely moving on with your beautiful, divinely protected life. Even from afar, the undeniable glow of your genuine, hard-won healing deeply penetrates their dark, pathetic isolation. Seeing the empath beautifully thrive while their own mind and body are violently failing them is the final, fatal, highly crushing blow that ends their life. The tragic, unavoidable end of the fiercely defined abuser is a chilling spectacle of total cosmic destruction. They laid cruel traps and burned the most sacred bridges, only to realize too late they locked themselves inside a failing biological prison. The brutal, disgusting manipulation they originally intended to kill your pure soul became the exact, undeniable blueprint for their death. You must absolutely, firmly, and permanently stop carrying the heavy burden of their inevitable, tragic physical destruction. The profound empathy you possess is a sacred, beautiful gift, even if it was maliciously weaponized. Do not waste a single, precious drop of pity on the collapsing, miserable abuser. Their absolute ruin is a fully justified, highly natural outcome of their evil. Recognize the absolute, unshakable, and completely glorious truth right now. Your absence did not unjustly kill them. You simply, bravely stopped allowing them to violently infect your beautiful spirit. By establishing your ironclad boundaries and permanently walking away, you merely allowed their deeply disgusting, highly toxic nature to finally consume their own fragile flesh and mind. Your essential, beautiful journey right now is about intense, unapologetic, and fierce spiritual reclamation. Every single agonizing tear you shed in the dark was deeply watering the vital seeds of your ultimate, unbreakable psychological armor. The deep pain was horrific, but it forged a magnificent version of you that is completely impervious to their sick, desperate, and toxic games. The abuser's tragic, sudden biological downfall is your absolute, undeniable, and completely permanent spiritual liberation. As their false, fragile reality violently crumbles to ash, your authentic, beautiful life is finally allowed to spectacularly blossom. The heavy, suffocating, highly toxic fog they forcefully placed over your brilliant mind is lifting permanently and entirely forever. Do not look back at the horrifying, pathetic wreckage they have finally, undeniably become. The collapsing, deeply despised predator wanted absolutely nothing more than to violently drag you down into the dark abyss of their karma. Let them completely thrash in the absolute dark. Let them drown in the terrifying silence of their empty, pathetic, universally hated, and totally rotting soul. This profound, secret psychological knowledge is your ultimate, impenetrable, and incredibly glorious shield. By deeply understanding the pathetic, incredibly fragile nature of their severe, hidden cosmic pathology, you entirely strip them of all their remaining phantom power. They are absolutely not a powerful god. They are a deeply disgusting, dying entity spiraling down into the dark. Your incredible, beautiful survival is the greatest, most profound rebellion against their severe, highly calculated abuse. They desperately wanted you permanently destroyed, completely silenced, and totally dependent on their false, dark reality. By fiercely choosing your own healing and walking away forever, you completely annihilate their entire sinister purpose. Your brilliant joy one. The highly toxic, dangerous connection is permanently, utterly and brilliantly severed by the ultimate hands of the universe. You are absolutely no longer their emotional or physical punching bag. You are a sovereign, magnificent survivor, glowing brilliantly with a renewed, entirely untouchable light. The deep scars you carry are profound battle wounds signifying your massive, pure power. As the broken narcissist rapidly fades into total, miserable public obscurity, slowly rotting away in the horrifying prison of their own poisoned mind, you are beautifully beginning to rise. The intense contrast is deeply poetic and absolutely, perfectly just. You are safely ascending into a spectacular life of genuine joy, while they sadly choke on their own bitter, highly toxic, dark ash. You completely survive the absolute psychological and spiritual slaughter. You bravely unmasked the terrifying monster, fiercely weaponized your absolute truth, and successfully watched their grand illusion burn straight to the ground. They utterly destroyed themselves trying to break a pure empath. Walk forward knowing your radiant soul is entirely safe, and the cosmic battle is truly won.